Good morning. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the last capacity building webinar of the Low2High District Heating Project on the topic how to structure and finance a district heating site renovation project. Speaker is Alvaro Salamanca from the GNE Finance. Welcome, Alvaro, and floor is yours.
Thank you, Martina. Good morning, everyone. I will share my screen again. Okay, the topic of today is related of the structuring and financing of a district heating site renovation project. Continuing through the basic concepts we learned last week. And in this regard, we are expecting today two types of attendees, project promoters, more related on the technical development of your renovation, where we believe that you will find this webinar very interesting in order to engage, to communicate with your financial officers. And also we are expecting people, financial officers from your sides, from different countries, that of course we understand that you already know how to structure and finance any renovation project. But among all the topics we will cover today, we are not only showing you the basic concepts, basic tasks to structure this project financing structure, but also how we are combining all these funding sources, all these European programs, all these European funds that are providing us different funds, that we are supporting us with different warranties. And in the end of the webinar, you will have complete funding mapping landscape of the landscape in Europe and how all these programs are interlinked, that they are related between each other. I'm saying this because in different European projects we are working on, not only in Low2High, too many promoters, financial officers are coming to us asking for innovative solutions, something new to apply to the project. And from our perspective, from the perspective of GNE Finance, I have bad news for you, but that in 2026, there is nothing real new. There is nothing new, real kind of innovative. Innovation relies on how you understand all this landscape, how you are dealing with your regional, national authorities, how you deal with your regulators, how you understand all these grants, all these programs, and how you combine all of them to create the perfect project financing structure for your renovation. Before we started, before Martina welcome us, you saw a slide talking about the recording consent, but also on top of that, we would like to remind you the same housekeeping rules as 2 weeks ago in the first financial webinars. Please, we kindly ask you to mute your microphone during my presentation, but of course you can use your chat for questions at any moment of the webinar. I will be reading your questions if there are some during the different sections of the webinar, and depending on the question, I will stop to answer the question in the moment you're asking, or I will keep your question for the end of the webinar. Also, at the end of the webinar, there will be a Q&A segment where you can raise your hand, you can turn on your camera, you can use your microphone if you prefer that instead of writing on the chat. But there will be a specific segment for Q&A. But nevertheless, you can write your questions during all the presentation, and we will be answering them. We structured the agenda of today in two different blocks. The first block is a presentation of all the funding sources, all the different funding sources you can rely on to fund the CapEx of your project. Remember from the previous webinar, the CapEx is represented by the assets of your renovation. If you are acquiring a new heat pump, if you are upgrading your network, your pipes, if you are creating a completely new energy hub, etc. This amount of money represents the CapEx of your project. Also, during the first block of the webinar, we will be talking about alternative financing and operational models. Maybe you know all these models, maybe not, but all the models we are going to present in other European webinars, in other European projects, they are naming them innovative financing models. But we as GNE Finance, we like to be accurate always, and these innovative financing models are models that already exist since decades. These EPC contracts, these subscription models we will see today, they are non-innovative at all. Innovation relies on how you mix everything, all your funding sources, all these models, or one of these models, how you understand the regulations in your country, the regulations in your region, the limits and constraints of your company, etc. And also in that part of the webinar, we are going to talk about different facilities from European programs and different support platforms that you can access to, as the word says, to get support. In some cases, these technical assistance facilities will fund part of your pre-feasibility or feasibility studies. In that way, you will reduce the CapEx of your project. You don't have to pay that part of the CapEx. In other facilities, in other platforms, you will receive capacity building, you will receive webinars like today in order to create new knowledge to your promoters, to your technical workers, etc. And we consider them that they are very useful. They're out there, but there is kind of not a problem. We have different programs in Europe, and each program has its facility, its platform, etc. And sometimes we are not aware of all of them. Today, with the webinar of today, we are going to present all of them, and also in the relevant resources we are giving to you at the end of the webinar, you will have access to detailed explanations of them. And finally, what can we do with all these funding sources? Is innovative, but for us is alternative financing and operational models. What we do with all of this, how we combine them to create the final financing structure for our renovation. And apart from that, there are some key mechanisms that some of you will know already. Some of you know already, but there are key mechanisms that we believe that are important and we have to highlight today in order to attract more private finance and also in some cases public finance, because these key mechanisms are not only focused on private finance, but usually they are considered for that. We are here. We finished the last webinar here, saying you, okay, dear promoters, you are here, you are in the initiation phase, you have to carry out a market analysis, your technical viability, economical viability, these financial models, etc. But you have to understand your funding landscape. You are in this part of the project. All the knowledge you have here about all this funding landscape will define how you create your project financing structure. Will define or will let you know all the different funding sources, financing mechanisms that you can apply to your project. All these grants, when you can lose your time applying for this, not lose your time. When you can use your time for applying to a grant or to a public loan, or if you understand all this landscape, when you will know that if you apply to the other program, you are going to waste your time. So we are in this part. And if you remember from our last webinar, after you understand all your CapEx, all your OpEx, the revenues, you are creating your financial model, you know your solvency, you make kind of not full credit risk analysis, but you how to analyze your ratios, your solvency ratios, your profitability ratios. And after you understand all your financing constraints, you can start defining with all these programs, with all these funding sources, you can define your project financing structure. I included today from the last webinar this box titled Financing Constraints. Were not here because that was not the purpose of the last webinars. But when we are considering everything, you know better than anyone what your financing constraints are. Maybe they are related with regulations. Maybe they are related with your internal regulations. These financing constraints means, okay, my public company is not open to reach new investors in my model, in my project. My public company, according to the internal regulations, is not open to negotiate a loan with a commercial bank, only, for example, with national banks. All these constraints, all these cash flows you are obtaining in your financial model, all your limits after your solvency analysis will define what is coming now, what is coming next, how I structure my project. We try always to make it simple for simple understanding. And as in the agenda you saw, we are thinking always about three big blocks: funding sources, these innovative or alternative financing and operational models, and these technical assistance facilities. When we are talking about funding sources, we are talking about money. Where is this money coming from? It's coming from somewhere that I don't have to repay, or it's coming from somewhere I have to repay in one way or another. That's why we are categorizing funding sources in non-redeemable funding sources and redeemable funding sources. When we are talking about combining these funding sources with alternative financing and operational models, in the end, in most of the cases, we are talking about public-private partnerships. We are talking about the famous ESCOs. And in the end, when we are looking for this support with private companies, in the end, what we are looking for is that we would like to reduce our capex. We would like another private company paying for this capex, paying for this technology, in one way or another, installing them, operating them, or in other models, just to provide the technology, and they are receiving money from our side because we are using this technology. But we would like to show you today all these models. There are more models apart from EPC contracts. And the technical assistance facilities, as I explained during the agenda, they are mechanisms that they are designed to provide us with some help, some advisory support, some capacity building, and sometimes we can use, there is money inside these technical assistance facilities to produce our feasibility studies. We know a feasibility study is expensive. If you find the perfect technical assistance facility, maybe, I don't know, in a consortium or directly, if it's a direct facility for you, you can use different funds to create your feasibility study, and this is money that you don't have to look for through a bank, through an investor, or from your own pocket. Funding sources, as I said, this table, we categorize them in two big groups. This categorization based to when we started some years ago to understand all the funding landscape in Europe. And if you go to other webinars, if you go to different, sometimes official websites, you see all the funding sources mixed. There are programs, European programs that provide you with grants at the same time with different loans, etc. And for us, when almost 10 years ago, when GNE Finance started working with these European programs, it was also very difficult for us to understand all the landscape. And we were thinking at that moment, well, if we are working with these programs every day, and sometimes it's difficult for us to understand them, I wouldn't be in the position of a project promoter. Yes, we were thinking, is the project promoter aware of all the programs that are applying in their countries? Is the project promoter aware of how each program works? Maybe they are losing time, maybe not. Maybe they are not aware, and finally they are trying to finance the project always with redeemable funding sources because they are completely lost when they are talking about grants. So that was the main categorization we made in a moment. And after that, we went deeper into all these programs to create the table I will show you in the next slide. This is our famous table. It's famous because we are using this table now in different webinars, in different capacity building programs, but we have to understand how it works. We are here now in non-redeemable funding sources. Non-redeemable funding sources. Okay, we were talking about grants, donations, and community contributions. In most of the cases for you, to understand your funding landscape, you are not thinking about donations in district heating, or at least in the countries where Low2High is operating, Poland, Slovakia, and Lithuania. Donations are not the base of any project financing structure, and also community contributions either. In other countries, in other projects, it could happen. So in this regard, when we are talking about grants, okay, what kind of grants we have? We have grants for direct investments, and we have grants for research and innovation. This is the main differentiation when we are talking about grants. Where are these grants coming from? The grants for direct investment, there are grants that we are naming grants on cohesion policy funds, but cohesion policy funds in Europe are formed by the Just Transition Fund, the ERDF, the Cohesion Fund, the ESF Plus. There are different funds, but in the end, all of them belong to a group that it's the group of cohesion policy funds. What you have to understand here, that every country with cohesion policy funds, every country has to develop their operation programs. All these funds in each country are managed by managing authorities, and they can develop these funds in one way or another. They can create, like in Slovakia, the program Slovensko, a common program managing all funds, not only cohesion, also modernization, also recovery and resilience facility, or they can create different programs, also different programs just for cohesion policy funds. And these cohesion policy funds are at national, at regional level. What we experience in the Low2High project is that, for example, related to district heating, when you go to Poland, when you go to Slovakia, it's kind of easy for the project promoter to look for a call for these cohesion policy funds. There are published calls, it's kind of easy. What we experience in Lithuania is that in Lithuania, they develop the national program, they develop regional programs, but calls for district heating are not announced in an easy way. In some cases, or in most of the cases, since 2 or 3 years ago, you municipalities, you public companies, you have to create proposals to access these funds. And we understand this is difficult. This is difficult for you because until the end of your negotiation, you don't know the amount of the grant you are going to receive, and it's not clear for you. So that's why I'm telling you, please, you have to understand this, because you have the power. You have the power to push your authorities to change things, to create specific calls, easy calls to understand for district heating. You have the power to push your national authorities to change the way of how these funds are developed. Same is happening with modernization fund. Modernization fund works kind of in a different way. But the difference is that every country with modernization fund, your countries have to make a proposal to the European Union about a specific topic. A specific topic for modernization fund. If the European Union and the European Investment Bank approves your proposal, then you create kind of calls for district heating in that case. For example, what we experienced in Lithuania, Lithuania didn't send any proposal for district heating. This is something we encourage you to move this, to press on this. There is money from modernization fund that is not coming directly to Lithuanian district heating projects. Recovery and resilience facility, we have it here, but it ends this year. And social climate fund is not already developed by your countries. But you have to consider only this fund, only these grants, if the focus of your renovation is directly related with a social purpose, with a big social purpose. I don't know if there is a renovation in a neighborhood with social housing for vulnerable people. That's the case. You can access the social climate fund. Grants for research and innovation, I'm not going to stop too much time here. Those grants are not directly related to direct investments, but in case of feasibility studies, pre-feasibility studies, you can look for different goals and understand it. National, regional, and municipal grants, we are included it here because at some point the European money will disappear I don't know if in 5 years, I don't know if in 10, 20 years, I don't know, but these national, regional, and municipal grants, we are referring to them when the money that created these grants is not coming from the European Union. As far as I know, all these programs in Poland, Lithuania, and Slovakia stopped some years ago with the money from Recovery and Resilience Facility arrived, when the money from cohesion policy funds was bigger, etc. Redeemable funding sources. Here we have also different funds and programs, but we have to understand them, and it's going to be related with what we see afterwards. We have a very interesting program, the Public Sector Loan Facility for your countries, for just transition regions. But what is happening with the Public Sector Loan Facility? In most of the case, the generic eligibility of the Public Sector Loan Facility relies on large-scale projects. In projects where the capex is about 25 million, and in most of the cases, a district heating site renovation doesn't cost 25 million. But there are ways to access to this facility, and this facility not only includes a loan, it also includes a grant that is covering part of your capex. And the rest, typical concessional debt, a grant from public sector loan facilities, concessional with some advantages like low interest, etc., or payments starting in 2, 3, 4 years, etc. This concessional debt is also included here in this group because it's part of this category of debt. But apart from this European funds and program, there are other financing institutions that they are providing promoters with concessional loans. And the biggest group, the group we all know, non-concessional debt, we are talking about commercial loans, bonds emission, capital market for large projects. And we are also considering other options that, for example, crowd lending in your countries and community debt financing is not common at all, but we are also considering it. But there are other instruments like financial leasing and installment purchases that is good that you consider them when you are thinking about your project financing structure. When we are talking about equity, traditional equity, I'm open to access to new investors in my project, to share my project with new investors, etc. There are other ways of equity, like equity crowdfunding, that is not common either in your countries, and community equity financing. But just in case, there are always exceptions, we are including them. And there is a category, we don't know if this is the right name, but in order to provide you with this table, with this big funding mapping landscape, we had to think about a name for calling these instruments, these financing instruments that sometimes are in the form of a loan, other times in the form of equity, or maybe both, like mezzanine finance. So here we have from Cohesion Policy Fund, your countries are allowed to create these financing instruments. It's depending on the country. And I know that there are countries that didn't create any financial instrument, and they are only using cohesion policy funds for grants. But in most of the countries, in one way or the other, minimum, they created kind of different loans related to concessional debt. Also included here, EIB. EIB, you can say why you are including a bank here, because EIB is involved in too many of these programs you are seeing here. But for example, you have to take into consideration that if you want to negotiate with EIB, your project has to be very large. You cannot go with a capex of 1 million euros to negotiate with EIB. EIB is not dealing with this type of projects. And we have other programs like the European Energy Efficiency Fund, InvestEU, that usually they provide loans and access to equity for projects that are, if I'm not wrong, with a capex over 5 million minimum, usually. Also here, we included different investment funds. Investment funds, they can provide loans, they can provide access to equity. We included all of them here, all of the funds we are thinking that could be useful for your structure. And that's why they are here. In the resources we are sharing with you, in our deliverables, etc., everything here is explained. If you belong to Poland, Lithuania, or Slovakia, you will have access in our deliverable, in the deliverable I shared with you last week, and I will share with you again today. In that deliverable, you have the links for all of this. You have links, you have institutions in your countries for all of these funding sources. In the end, most of them, except Public Sector Loan Facility, European Energy Efficiency Fund, InvestEU, depending on the country, you have different links to access them, to investigate them, to make your research. So this is a common structure for all Europe. You included Poland, Lithuania, and Slovakia. Alternative financing and operational models. Okay. Now we have all of us, we have clear all the funding sources. It's like, okay, I'm going to fund my project with my own money, and I'm going to look for different funding sources, grants, loan, new equity investors, etc. But it can happen that for different reasons, you don't want to make the operation of your project, or maybe your project is not attractive enough for a traditional investor, or for a bank, or for whatever reason, or directly because you are a public company, you're a public authority, and you want to involve a private company in your project financing structure. For any reasons, there are different models in the market. There are different models in the market. We are showing you here the most relevant ones according to our experience for district heating site renovations. The three first, DBFO, BOT, BOOT. I'm not going to say that they are very similar, but it's a group, but it's kind of different than the rest. In the end, in all of these models, is a private company who is designing, who is building, and who is operating the infrastructure. Difference rely in the ownership of the asset, and in other topics, this is much more comprehensive, but we have limited time. For example, ownership in a DBFO, usually the ownership of the asset relies on the public promoter almost always. In BOT, depending on how you are making the contract, and in BOOT, the ownership of the asset belongs to the private company, almost always to the private company during the operation, during the contract, and at the end of the contract, this ownership is completely transferred to the public company. Energy performance contracting. I know that you all know energy performance contracting, performance-based contract based on savings. This private company is guaranteeing you that there will be some savings in your buildings, in your site, etc., and you are repaying the ESCO, you are repaying the ESCO through the savings you are getting. There are other models, heat pump subscription model and operational renting. They are kind of renting models, both of them. You are not acquiring the asset, you are not buying the technology. In the case of heat pump, a heat pump, of course. And in the case of operational renting, I don't know, imagine other technology like PV panels, other informatic systems, programs, whatever. You are not buying, but you are paying them for the use. And transfer of operating rights is when directly you transfer the right to operate to a private company. There is not a huge renovation here, but this private company is committed to make some upgrades, to make some optimization of your site, etc. Here I included the effect on your CapEx and the cash flow implications of each of them. As always, I'm running out of time, so I gave you here, because we will share the presentation with you, with this table. Basically, in most of the cases, when you are forming a public-private partnership, you are reducing your capex, except in some EPC contracts that we saw in the past, and in most of the cases, in the majority of the cases, what is happening is that your OPEX increase. You have to pay this private company because they made the investment for you. They are giving you the technology, or they are operating your site, etc. So you have to take this in mind. Every contract is different. You have to understand what you want in order, if you want to make a public-private partnership, if you want to include a private partner in your project. Of course, you have to understand how you want to carry out the operation, and who is going to be in charge of the different tasks. Very fast here. New technical assistance facilities and EU support platforms and other initiatives. There are more. Of course, there are more. But we would like to share with you today the most relevant ones. Everyone has different, if you are going to be a beneficiary, eligibility rules, depending on the size of your project, depending if you are a public company, a private company, etc. Most relevant here, like you are seeing here, cohesion policy in the left block. You are seeing here just transition platform in the right block. You can say, Álvaro, but you said there are funds and programs. Yeah, these funds and programs, they have, some of them, they have platforms to support you. Some of them, for example, in cohesion policy, the countries are allowed to create a technical assistance facility with the cohesion policy funds, etc. You have, in different cases, for example, with cohesion policy or just transition platform, you have to, no, sorry, cohesion policy only. You have to check if your country developed any program for technical assistance in your country, and there are other European platforms, other European technical assistance facilities that you can check. You can check. You can also, you have also initiative, a platform for supporting you when creating a public-private partnership. This, I don't know the pronunciation, EPEC or EPIC platform. And also there are other projects like us, like Low2High, projects like UCF, European Energy Communities Facility, that apart from capacity building activities like we are providing you in Low2High, they are giving you money, they are giving you a small grant for preparing your feasibility studies. So please take this into account. And all in all, when we finished at GNE Finance to understand all this landscape, it was kind of messy in the end. So finally, after we understood everything, we wanted to create this map. I'm not going to explain the map now. This is kind of a present for you, but this is how all the programs, all the technical assistance facilities, all the platforms I was mentioning are related. Here you can see, for example, for cohesion policy funds, modernization funds, recovery resilience facility, and social climate fund, that the authorities in charge of developing these programs are your national authorities. They are creating the grants. You have to apply to them. You have to deal with them. If there is no modernization fund for district heating in your country, I would encourage you to deal with your national authorities, regional authorities, to push them to create a proposal for district heating with modernization fund, like we have in Slovakia, covering up to 47% of the technology in a project we are advising in the Low2High. This is the interconnection between all European funds. We believe that this is interesting for you, but please keep in mind that this is at European level. When you are landing on your country, cohesion policy funds are not named cohesion policy funds Poland. No, your country may create a program like Slovakia, Slovensko, recovery resilience facility. Recovery resilience facility in your country is not named recovery and resilience facility. In your country, for example, in Lithuania is a next generation, and I believe that in Poland, in my country, Spain is next generation as well. Poland or Lithuania or Slovakia as well. Please take that into account and look for these grants, look for these programs, understand the size of your project, understand your financing constraints, understand the programs, start looking for a call, for a grant, for a loan, concessional loan, etc. And if you realize that your country didn't develop any call for you for district heating coming from one of these programs, encourage your country to make it, because there is a lot of money coming from the European Union, and we need, as district heating site operators, we need also this money to renovate. And sometimes we have this money, but it's not too much. Sometimes the grants from cohesion policy funds in one of the countries I know from our project, cohesion policy funds in one country is only supporting with a grant around 25% of technology. In other countries, we have grants from cohesion policy funds supporting 50, 60% of the technology. It's important for you to understand this landscape, because also you have the power to push your authorities. Very fast, we have only 15 minutes left. In the end, what is happening here? We are going to create our project financing structure. Okay, now I come back to the concept of innovation. Did you see any innovative thing previous to this slide? No, there is nothing innovative. There is nothing new. Innovation is how you combine things. And to create your own innovation, you need to know the knowledge, and the knowledge, far from the knowledge you had before. You have to understand all these programs. You have to understand your limitations, and you have to, of course, to understand the CapEx of your project, your future revenues, cash flows, and then you combine, you look for the perfect fund, you look for the perfect grant or loan, according to all of that. And what can happen? Okay, I'm going to create my project financing structure like in a kind of traditional way with what we name recourse solutions. Because a recourse solution is with liability, the responsibility in case of default, in case of you are not paying your loan, etc. This responsibility goes beyond the project, goes to your assets, to your entity assets. Or something, this is kind of not innovative because project finance, the second column, project finance, the creation of an SPV, it's presented in some webinars like something very innovative. But from our point of view, this is not innovative at all. The creation of SPVs. There are SPVs being created since decades. So innovation here, depending on the structure you want to create to your project, innovation relies on your knowledge of everything, on your knowledge on this landscape, and on a good financial model that tells you the size of your project, the future revenues, etc. Most innovative, if you want to name it here, but it's not innovation, is most complex structure is the structure on the right side of the screen. When you are going for a project finance structure, the liability usually is limited to the project revenues and assets because you create a specific company and then there are different actors participating in the project, the public authority, investor, lenders, etc. But in most of the cases, from our experience, when we are supporting projects like you, when we are supporting public companies, etc., in most of the cases, from our experience, is that you are always going, and this is normal, to the left column. And in the left column, you are seeing here different boxes with optional, optional, or optional, optional. In the end, if we come back here, see all these funds and programs, all the financing instruments, all these financing and operational models, all these technical assistance facilities, everything, more or less, everything coming from Europe here. In the end, there are millions of potential combinations for your project. There are millions. Here you will receive, and I'm going to finish now, I'm not going to explain the slides, but you will receive them, you will receive the slides with all explanations. Here, if we want to summarize in 1, 2, 3, 4 different generic structures. Okay, we have the first structure, financing structure, when you are using only your own money and different grants. It's optional. Okay, I'm going to engage this private company with creating an EPC contract. I engage in this ESCO, etc. This is a generic, simple structure for your project. There could be another generic, simple structure. Okay, I'm going to rely on, of course, my economic resources, different grants, maybe an ESCO, and a loan. Okay, my project is generating enough cash flows to repay a loan, but it's not very interesting for equity investors. Or maybe my own regulations don't allow me to attract equity investors. So you could choose kind of a structure like this. Other structure is with equity. only with equity. Okay, your project have different. It's a project with volatile long-term revenue streams that maybe it's not interesting for a commercial bank, for a concessional loan, for an institution providing you with a concessional loan, etc. But maybe it's enough attractive for investors looking for a big remuneration in the future. And the last one, like the perfect project from our side, it's like your project is engaging, is attractive for a bank, for a European program, providing you with a grant, for different investors. Your project has like everything. I don't want to mean that it's the best project. It has everything. This is a structure, but all these structures I'm explaining, there could be like millions of options in each of the structures because there are dozens of grants, dozens of programs, depending on your country, depending on your countries, depending on the region you are carrying out the site, the renovation of the site, etc. Oops, I forgot that I included here key mechanisms to attract private finance. We are running out of time. Very fast. Blended finance, warranties, product bundling, and risk-sharing facilities. Blended finance. You will listen this concept several times. When we are talking about blended finance, we are not talking about a simple combination of funds. We are talking about take these grants from European programs as an strategy, as your strategy to de-risk the project and to convince financial institutions that your project is attractive, that they can provide you with a loan or they can access as equity investors. Use this grant as a strategy. Your project was granted. Your project was granted from the European Union. Your project was granted by your country. Your project is an important project. This is how you should use these grants, not just a simple combination of funds. If we only take the previous slides, take these grants as a strategy. Warranties, okay, very fast. A third party covers your debt obligations if you are entering into default. There are European programs providing you with warranties. That's why I am telling you, don't stay only with, okay, I have this grant and this grant in my country. Try to take this table and try to understand all the programs, because there are programs that are accompanied by a warranty. Also, you can find the warranty from other financial institutions, etc. Of course, warranties are not coming only for European programs. The most interesting one from our experience with you in the analysis we are carrying out in your countries is this concept called project bundling. As I told you, for example, public sector loan facility, InvestEU, European Energy Efficiency Fund. There are programs, funds that are specific for medium-sized to large-scale projects. I know that most or a big proportion of your renovations are not, you are not calculating a capex of 15 millions, 20 millions, 30 millions, 40 millions. It's like, oh, as my renovation is very small, I cannot access to these European programs. Think about it. Maybe you need more time, but I know most of you are coming from public companies or from private companies working as not from public companies working as a private company, from municipalities, etc. Project promoters are the municipality, etc. and you are not carrying out only modernization of your district heating site. You are carrying out other renovation, building renovations. You are making projects of for urban transport. You are creating fields of PV panels, etc. Think about it. Think about it. Let's talk between different departments in your municipalities or in your regions. Understand what you are doing in different sectors, and why not try to bundle all your projects, and then you will have the eligibility to access other EU programs that require bigger projects. And risk-sharing facilities is not, it's of course it's not similar, but in the end, there is kind of a warranty for your loan. There are different institutions. That are covering the risk of a loan portfolio, and in case you enter into default, if you are in this risk-sharing facility, part of your risk is covered by the facility. You have to understand. Sorry, before ending, I went very fast because it's a bit late. I'm going it to you, not for you today. Like if you're a financial officer, you don't need my explanation of all these concepts. If you're a project promoter, of course, with a 30 seconds explanation, you are not going to be an expert in risk-sharing facilities, in warranties. Blended finance and project bundling, it's simple. It's simple to understand. You are not going to be an expert, but it's for your research. It's for your research. When you are creating, when you are thinking, when you are making your research with all European funds and programs, you have to know that behind of them, these facilities, these risk-sharing facilities, these warranties exist. If you are not aware of that, you are missing some information. You are missing your power. You are missing your power to create the best financing structure for your modernization. Relevant resources, you will receive these slides. Of course, I am putting again the deliverable 2.3 and deliverable 2.3, and there are summaries in your own languages, Polish, Slovak, and Lithuanian of deliverable 2.3, because deliverable 2.3 is 200 pages deliverable, but there are summaries. You can find the links to all these programs we are talking about, and the links of the transposition of the program to your country. You can have the access to all the calls, etc., and you will have a comprehensive explanation of everything explained today. And here we have a very interesting tool I discovered a couple of years ago. We are collaborating GNE Finance with Covenant of Mayors in different projects, in different initiatives, etc. This is an interesting mapping. Take a look of this mapping. It's kind of an interactive map where you are saying, okay, I'm a public authority, my CapEx is above 10 millions, I'm in this sector, district heating sector, industry sector, and after you click on that interactive map, the website offers you the programs I was explaining to you. It's kind of a very interesting filter. I encourage you to take a look on this tool. And that's all from our side, from my side. It's time for Q&A. Thank you very much for your listening. And I expect, I believe there was a question last week, 2 weeks ago, related to ESCO and to EPC contracts. Maybe this person is here. he or she would like to extend his or her question. But of course, you are open to ask what you feel necessary, interesting. Thank you.
Hello to everybody. I would like very kindly thank Alvaro, but if somebody has some question on him to the subject dealing with financing of district heating side the reconstruction, please try to put your questions. Somebody answered that there are no questions, but anyway, if you have some questions, you can take your hands or you can use microphone directly. If not, once more, Alvaro, thank you for a very nice overview what are possibilities to finance. It's pity that what you mentioned, that there is no too much projects at present from EU or maybe from national countries supporting directly. But I know, especially in Slovakia, that but it is not only in Slovakia. There is based on energy efficiency directive, so-called modernization fund, where is possible to apply, especially for green technology. It means if we would like to change the fossil fuel in energy sources to renewable, is it possible? But it's based on national regulations. Alvaro, thank you. It was nice to hear you.
Thank you, Dusan. Related to that, now,
yeah.
Related to that, now you made that comment. The European Commission is aware of that, and I know that they are switching the focus in some initiatives, etc. They are switching the focus to district heating. For example, this UCF facility I explained in the slides, UCF will have a continuation in July for the coming years. We are part of that consortium, and now there is a focus on district heating. The European Commission is aware that in not all the countries district heating is a priority. It's not a priority, but it's starting to be a priority because the priority in the previous years was building renovation, doing renovation, other initiatives, and at some point, district heating, don't misunderstand me, was left behind a little bit. And now the European Commission is aware of that, and they are pushing the countries, they are pushing us also on top to support district heating modernization. That's the good news of that.
Okay, once more, thank you, Alvaro, for excellent presentation, and I hope that it was not last time what we have seen you during our webinars. Bye-bye, best regards.
Thank you.
Also, I would like to thank all of you. It was approximately 40 people in some certain time. It's very nice, and I hope that you could take some new information, especially from the point of financing of the projects. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.